Astrosonics, astrology is sound healing. It's actually an integration of astrology, frequency, and Chinese medicine for high vibe healing and the transformation of consciousness. So, for those who may be wondering how I came to be doing this type of work, I'm just going to give you a little bit of my background. I began as a musician at an early age, and as a teenager, I became absolutely fascinated with astrology. It was through the language of astrology that I actually had the visceral experience of what we were taught in catechism, that God knows every hair on your head and every prayer upon your lips before you utter those words. But it wasn't really until I began to study the placement of the planets at the time that I was born that I actually began to accept myself and accept the fact that I never felt like I fit in. Whether it was in my family or in my peer group, I just always felt different. And I was trying to understand myself. So, anyway, music, astrology, and then I did go on and get an undergraduate in music. Post college, I then studied many of the healing arts, and among them was a year of graduate studies in Chinese medicine, and I absolutely fell in love with it. I did not finish, I am not a licensed acupuncturist, but it was through my interaction working at the school and then later becoming a student for a time that I learned about acutonics. And it's as a certified acutonics practitioner that I now use the tools, the tuning forks, that are calibrated to the orbital frequencies of the planets. So, fast forward, I did go back to school later to get a master's in health sciences because I have always wanted to build a bridge. I don't know if it's possible now but let me just finish. I wanted to build a bridge between ancient or traditional medicine, more Eastern philosophy with Western modern medicine. And now I'm of the mind that we just need to start all over again. But anyway, be that, sorry, Tammy. I know you're a nurse and I respect
No,
it.
that's quite all right because I'm kind of that same mind as well, and I am a nurse.
So yeah, I mean, we'll be touching upon how I came to feel that way, and I'm given the last 2 years, I'm sure I don't need to explain it to you. So I did write two books on planetary science. The first one is really a comprehensive overview of the Doctrine of Signatures, repeating patterns that we find in nature and particularly the four elements: fire, earth, air, water. But it was doing the research for this book that I really came to understand astrology so differently. And this is what I'll be touching upon tonight. Um, but it has to do with the natal astrology signature being the human equivalent of the doctrine of signatures. So I'll be talking a little bit about that this evening. The second book is about a particular planet discovered in 2003, and it ties in to why I feel our modern medicine has just gotten to the point where the pendulum has swung so far that now planet Sedna has a message for us, and it's really important that we pay attention, and it has to do with our relationship to water. So I will be talking about that as well. Basically, tonight's presentation, hopefully it's not too ambitious, but we're going to be talking about the integration, the connection between astrology, sound, and Chinese medicine. We're going to be talking about how planets, plants, people, and places all have a signature. And it's through this vibration and consciousness that we are all connected. We're going to be talking about the four elements as the building blocks of the cosmos: fire, solids, liquids, gas. They are, by the way, the same. They're same four suits in a deck of playing cards, as well as tarot. We're going to be talking specifically about water and what makes it unique. And that is when I will address Sedna and the message of the signature of Sedna and how we can derive meaning from it. And last, we will be talking about the contrast between ancient and current medicine. So I love to make up words, and I have called my cosmology astromusicology. I view the planets, which aren't just in the heavens out there somewhere, they dwell within us. It is the Hermetic principle, as above, so below, as within, so without. So planets really are vibrations of consciousness that dwell within us as much as in the heavens. The signs are the instruments through which the planets express themselves. So you don't want, you know that violins don't, and they're not supposed to sound like brass instruments, and brass instruments don't sound like percussion or the piano. Every instrument has a voice. Each one is unique. So depending on the placement of the planets and signs and houses, this is how we get such a labyrinth and a unique signature. The houses are the where. These are the scenes upon which we as conscious conductors get in tune with ourself and get in tune with our environment. So just to give an example, the different areas of life I've mentioned here, the first house is self and identity. It's how we dawn upon people. It's how we appear to other people. The fourth house is our home, family, our rootedness, where we feel emotionally rooted and safe. The seventh house, opposite the first, is the sector of partnership and others. And the 10th house at the top of the chart is the opposite of the most private, intimate home life. The fourth house, the opposite is the 10th, which is our reputation and our public persona. Here is an example. Now, don't get worried about how complicated this looks. It is just an example of a chart, and I drew this up for the Libra full moon we just had a few days ago. And the reason I did that is because I was I've been going back and forth as to whether or not to have you experience Astrosonics at the end or the beginning. And I just decided that I would have you experience it at the beginning because I feel that experience is the most powerful teacher. I can talk all night about Astrosonics, but until you actually experience it, it doesn't really hit home. It doesn't resonate, okay? So I thought what I would do is play for you the Astrosonics affirmations, the planetary harmonic blends that were created from this chart. And that's what we're going to be doing in just a minute. But first, I want to share my favorite quote from Marcus Aurelius. I mean, what does it mean to live in harmony? And his quote is, "When you have been compelled by circumstances to be disturbed in any manner, quickly return to yourself and do not continue out of tune longer than the compulsion lasts. You will have increasing control over your own harmony by continually returning to it." So with that, I would like to have you experience the Astrosonics. I'm just gonna get out of this for a sec. And so the healing message of the Aries full moon is all about balancing self with others. Aries as the first house, Libra representing the 7th of partnership. So this is about learning to respect others' needs while maintaining healthy boundaries for ourselves. So that's what these affirmations are about. And just give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Let me know if you can hear this. Sun with a full moon. I honor others' boundaries by taking care of my own needs and asserting personal principles honestly and fairly. This is the yod between the full moon, Jupiter, and Sedna. The deep inner wisdom and dream visions I receive now find manifestation in fair and equitable relationships that benefit myself and everyone involved. Sun with Palace. Any action that I take now is inspired by divine wisdom and grace that benefits myself and everyone around me. Mercury with Uranus. I receive instant downloads and epiphanies from divine source and give them expression in grounded ways that benefit Earth and all her life. Mars with Juno. I engage in new relationships and/or contracts only when I know that there is an equitable flow and balance of energy that benefits everyone involved. Jupiter with Neptune. I receive new inspiration for my highest dreams and visions through the divine portal of infinite potential and unconditional love. Saturn with Juno. I recognize my own spiritual authority and sovereignty in every new relationship and/or contract in which I engage. This is Saturn with the nodal rulers Pluto and Venus. I recognize my own spiritual authority and sovereignty as I release old patterns of giving my power away to untrustworthy entities and engage only with those who revere all life on our planet. This is Sedna conjunct the North Node using Venus. I am able to see all previous wounds and past traumas from a higher perspective now, enabling me to release the hurt, transcend the trauma, and receive lasting peace. This is Pluto with Sedna. I recognize the power within me to act as a channel for divine will, justice, passion, peace, prosperity, and the highest power of all, which is love, the only true source of healing. This is Ceres with Vesta. I now understand and put into practice that the only authentic way to rescue another soul is to shine my own sacred inner flame of wisdom. What I meant to let you know before we did that was just to have neutral awareness, neutral observation as to how the frequencies were received. Did you sense the vibration going anywhere in the body? Was there a color that you saw, or an image, or a word, anything like that? And I'll continue with a presentation for now, but hopefully you can jot it down and maybe recall it if when we have time to share or ask questions at the end. That we just experienced was a signature for the Libra full moon. And that's in essence what this evening's Astrosonics is all about. All planets, plants, people, and places have vibration, and therefore they have consciousness. And we can communicate with that consciousness. And each signature is unique because of its environment and its experience. And each signature, like the Doctrine of Signatures, holds healing protocols, the healing instructions for that person, place, plant. Actually, in the case of plants, it's how the plant can be used as medicine for us and in its environment. But healing, the word heal actually goes back to an old English word, hal, H-A-L, which means whole, W-H-O-L-E. So to heal means to return to wholeness. And that is about recognizing that all of our parts, all of the systems in the body work within the ecosystem of our own physical body, but also our physical body is in relationship to our environment. So now we will talk about the Doctrine of Signatures. As I said, it does go back to Greek pharmacology, Dioscorides. It was carried forth by the Greek physician Galen, who lived from 129 to 215 Common Era, and it was popularized by Jacob Boehme, who lived from 1575 to 1624, the 17th century German philosopher. And it states, nature marks each growth according to its curative benefits. And that's merely what I just said, that each signature has its healing protocols. And every one of these signatures is unique. We're going to talk a little bit about water. I love the work of Wilson Bentley because it reveals that what I call in my book the hexagon phenomenon. This is how material substances seem to find stability when they are forming, is through this hexagon. So the number 6, I know it gets a bad rap, but actually it's a number of stability. So we're going to look at that. But the concept of the doctrine of signatures is geometry, right? Every signature is a geometric formation, and because it is geometry, it is also frozen music. As Goethe said, astrology is geometry, and therefore it can be viewed as frozen music. And as I've already said, our natal charts are the equivalent, the human equivalent of the doctrine of signatures. So it's also in our DNA, this hexagon formation. This is a picture of an atom, a human cell. And these pictures were taken from my book because I had the copyright at the time I did the book. So that's why I've included them for this presentation. But I think it's amazing. It's another example, as above, so below, as within, so without. This is a healthy water crystal from Dr. Emoto's work, and I'm going to talk a little bit about him as well. But when water crystals are exposed to positive words, positive thoughts, or prayers like love, thank you, gratitude, or beautiful, they form perfectly symmetrical geometry like this beautiful water crystal. But when we're not in harmony, or when we're thinking negative thoughts or speaking negative words, the water has no symmetry. It has no stability to it. It's distorted and chaotic looking. And these are further examples of how different and how unique each snowflake actually is. And we're going to talk about why, what makes them unique, which is the reason I'm so fascinated by Wilson Bentley. He actually was the first to receive a grant by the American Meteorological Society because he kept meticulous records on each snowflake. He used a bellows camera attached to a microscope, and that's how he was able to capture over 5,000 images of these snowflakes. He is quoted as having said, hold on just a sec, sorry, was ever history written in more dainty hieroglyphics? And because what he found out in researching these snowflakes is that it was their journey through cloudland that made them each so unique. And to me, that is a perfect metaphor for the human soul's journey through eternity, journey through consciousness, and what makes each one of our signatures unique. So I just found that so fascinating. This diagram is just showing you how water forms into the hexagon. But we see this everywhere in nature. We see it in the honeycomb. If you dissect a tomato, you're going to see a 6-pointed star or that hexagon. If you watch how bubbles form in water or any liquid, they tend to form the 6 in 6s. This I go into more detail in the book, but it's beyond the scope of this presentation. I just wanted you to be aware of the hexagon phenomenon. So there's the quote. Yes, Wilson Bentley, was ever life history written in more dainty hieroglyphics? Now, Dr. Masaru Emoto passed away 2014, but he wrote several books on the healing messages, and well, one of them was Hidden Messages in Water, The Healing Power of Water, and The Secret Life of Water, but he's written several other books. And it's fascinating work because it essentially shows us how classical music, Beethoven, Mozart, but also positive thoughts and our prayers do impact water. So we're going to look at what makes water so unique. This signature I wanted to show you before we moved off the topic of the six-pointed star, because in Sedna's chart, this is the chart for Sedna's discovery on November 14th, 2003. And as you can see, we have a grand trine, which is a supportive aspect, very harmonious aspect. But we have a grand trine pointing toward heaven, and they're thin blue lines, but we also have a grand trine pointing toward earth. So the six-pointed star is a grand sextile. It is a harmonious aspect, and it is providing us as the human family on planet Earth, providing us with a grand opportunity to come back into balance with our yin feminine essence. This is not about gender. This is not at all about, women being superior. That is not at all where I'm going with this or what I'm saying. Every human being has yang and yin energies within, masculine and feminine tendencies, and we will see that when we get to the four elements. But the yang energies of action, of doing, of conquering and competition in the collective has become so extreme that Sedna's message with this six-pointed star is reminding us, and by the way, these two trines are in earth and water, the yin elements. So this is about going within and trusting our intuition, trusting our instincts. So it's about being and embracing our sacred beingness rather than the need to take action all the time and compete. So here we're going to look at what makes up the 12 zodiac signs. We have 4 elements and we have 3 modes. And as I already talked about, earth and water are the yin elements. Fire and air are the yang elements. Fire is the energy that animates life, and it's also the energy of heat that transforms, and that is its healing principle in the body. So it moves quickly, and both fire and air have upward motion. Think of the smoke that rises from fire and air that is constantly circulating above ground. So they are both upward moving, they're both fast, air circulates, and it tends to disperse things, right? It can be chaotic in its extreme expression because it will rearrange the entire environment. So fire represents our spiritual aspect, the spirit that animates all life. Air represents our intellect, the mind. Earth, a yin element, is, think of earth, we depend upon it. It's steady, reliable. We feel grounded and safe when we wake up in the morning and put 2 feet solidly on the ground. So from our perspective, earth does not move, even though it's moving through the solar system. From our perspective, it is immovable, steady, reliable. So earth provides a container, and it does represent our physical body and the physical senses. Water represents the emotional and intuitive realm. So water moves slowly, it's weighty. Earth also moves down. They're both, the yin elements both move downward. Roots grow deep into the earth. Water seeps deep into the ground. So water's healing essence is about nourishing, and it can also dissolve or flush out what has become stagnant. Now we also have 3 modes, and this is what distinguishes each of the 3 signs belonging to these elements. So we have 3 fire signs, but they're not all the same because one is cardinal, one is fixed, and one is mutable. Cardinal, I put a plus sign next to it because it is a positive charge. It's a positive energy and expression of the element. Fixed energy harnesses, it's a more negative energy or magnetic. It pulls in the energy or the essence of that element and uses it and processes it before it finds expression. The mutable mode is about being neutral. It's like the tightrope walker on that tightrope where they're making all these minute adjustments. Mutability is adjustability, so it's fine tuning to fine tuning the element. Let's put it that way. This is not an astrology lesson, so that's all I'm going to say about that. I can't go into every single sign. But now you at least understand how each one of the 3 signs that belongs to the elements are different. And the 4 elements also correspond to the 4 humors or temperaments. So when it comes to the body, and this is how ancient medicine did practice medicine, it was called humoral medicine. So fire is hot and dry, symbolized by summer, the season of summer. It shows up as yellow bile, and its temperament is called choleric. Earth is cold and dry, and it's associated with fall. It shows up as black bile, and its temperament is melancholic. Air is warm and wet, associated with the springtime. It shows up as blood, and its temperament is sanguine. Water is cold and wet, associated with winter, and it shows up in the body as phlegm. So its temperament is phlegmatic. So in the ancient practice of medicine, up until the time of Hippocrates, they practiced humoral medicine, which was understanding how all of the elements alchemized, how they, responded to each other, and where there was excess or deficiency, that was what needed to be treated. That was what brought about the imbalance in the body. They really looked at the body like an ecosystem, which is, I feel, much, it's common sense. Everything exists in relationship within its environment and beyond, with the outer environment as well. So now I'd like to talk a little bit about Pythagoras, because in doing the research for my first book, it was Pythagoras' teachings that really gave me so much inspiration and the epiphany. So number in itself implies order. Number in space is represented by geometry. This is Pythagorean philosophy, by the way. Number in time is music and harmony. Number in space-time is astronomy. So in my view, if astronomy is the language of the cosmos, of the universe, and the entire creation, then surely astrology describes the individual's place within the cosmos, within the universe. And as I said, Hippocrates, up until the time of Hippocrates, the medical practice was viewing as above, so below, the relationship of body with its environment. But Hippocrates actually, as the father of Western medicine, he was the one who's actually responsible for extracting, for divorcing energy and spirit from the practice of medicine. And this began our downward spiral, I believe, because we have become so obsessed with substance and particles and studying particles under a microscope, expecting the same results every single time. And what Dr. Emoto, he made a joke about our double-blind experiment, saying that that's what it made us, double-blind, because we're not taking everything into account. And quantum science tells us that 99.99999% of all reality is space. It's the unseen, intangible realm. Only 0.0000, however many zeros, 1% is actual particles. So that, in my view, is the tail wagging the dog. when we are making all of our decisions on studying the 0.00001% of our reality and not taking into consideration all of the infinite potential that is simply awaiting our observation and interaction as a vibrational, conscious being. So now I want to talk about the importance of Sedna and why I felt it so necessary to bring up her medicine, her signature. Sedna, there are many myth stories out there, and I do recommend, if you are interested at all in this subject, please do your own research, and my book is out there if you so choose. There are many, many myth stories and variations, but she is known as the Immortal Sea Woman. She drowned in the Arctic Sea after her father refused to let her back in the boat, and her hands, which were cut off, became the sea life, the life in the ocean. And dolphins and whales communicate through sonar. So I'm going to talk about the importance of water, its relationship to sound, and its relationship to its correspondence in Chinese medicine. But here's what I want to talk about. Since Sedna's discovery in 2003, and she was named by astronomers for this myth Immortal Sea Woman, for the legendary Immortal Sea Woman. She was named in 2004, and after that we had that massive tsunami in Indonesia that killed nearly 250,000 people. After her discovery, in less than a decade, we had 12 tsunamis, equating to approximately 2/3 of the entire number of tsunamis we had in a 50-year span between 1950 and 2000. So in my view, this is nature wanting to get our attention as to the importance of water. We've had increasing Category 4 and 5 hurricanes. We've had water events virtually touch every corner of the globe. And all of this is revealing why our relationship to water matters so much. Now, this doesn't mean that Sedna is a harbinger of doom. It means the opposite. She is here to remind us how to transcend the past and what happened before. And I'm going to get to that. But this is a little poem that came through as I contemplated Sedna's message. So, my higher dimensions call to you to face your lowest lows. The paradox of going within transcends the path you chose. Your destiny for the future lies not in repeating the past. I represent that part of you that won't allow the typecast. Your ancestors speak to you through me. There is magic in your blood. By healing the ocean of consciousness, you avoid the cataclysmic flood. Sedna's orbit is 10 to 12,000 years. So the last time this planet was close to our solar system, or considered in our solar system, was during the time of the legendary civilizations of Atlantis and Lemuria. When the waters rose, there was the demise of those civilizations. But I do not believe for a second that that is our destiny. I feel that what we've learned from that, and the takeaway from that, is that we gave up our relationship to nature, to our environment, in favor of technology. And we cannot let that happen this time. There was something else I wanted to say about Sedna. That's okay. I got to move on because there's a lot. I was very ambitious. Bear with me. So we're going to talk about the unique properties of water. Two people, Linus Pauling, who was a Nobel Prize winner, 2-time Nobel Prize winner, and Rustum Roy. One studied the properties. Linus Pauling, his work, The Nature of the Chemical Bond, focused on the properties of water. Rustum Roy, on the other hand, was nominated 25 times and cited over 68,000 times, but he never won the Nobel Prize. And I believe it's because he talked about the very same thing that Dr. Emoto talked about. The nature of water and its molecular structure allows it to transfer information without involving any substance. He reminded the scientific community that the first law of materials science is that it is structure that determines composition. and structure is affected by the electromagnetic frequencies. Bottom line is that he was demonstrating how our thoughts, the electromagnetic frequencies we hold and we receive and transmit all impact the nature of water and the composition of water. Whether we see the beautiful symmetrical structures and geometry or distorted and unhealthy water crystals. So, as we know, focus is fertilizer. Energy follows thought. Thoughts create beliefs. Beliefs create structures. And those structures create our environment. And that environment is either going to perpetuate more stagnation and unchangeability, or stability that allows for change and for the alchemical interaction between the four elements. So the water element in Chinese medicine is extremely important. I mean, all of them are, but because of the world as it is right now and because of what we've gone through for the last 2 years, and because I feel that Sedna's message is monumental for our changing age right now and for the entire human family. In Chinese medicine, water is associated with the kidneys, which rules our bones, our structure, and bone marrow. And what does bone marrow hold but our DNA? It's the inherited, and in Chinese medicine, it's our inherited essence. It is associated with the emotion of fear, but it's also where we can transcend fear. Water and the kidneys hold a very strong willpower or giving in to fear. Sedna in particular, her myth, her astronomy, her astrology, her myth, and her signature are all about transcending trauma, betrayal, deception, and this is what I feel her healing message is. The other important thing is that the kidneys in Chinese medicine flower into the ears. And as we know, all life in the sea communicates through sonar communication. We also know that vibration travels faster in water. Our bodies, by the way, are 70% water. So even though we have all of the elements within us, and so does the earth and our bodies are 70% water. So this is an important takeaway. I hope that you will remember, because one of the things that the Inuit culture in discussing Sedna in the Sedna myth, they talk about the importance of language. They talk about the power of words to evoke. And this is exactly what I hope you will take away from this presentation, that our dialogue with ourselves, whether it's inner dialogue, whether we speak the words or not, our inner dialogue and what we speak all have so much power to affect not just our own bodies, but what we say, what we do will either help to purify the waters on our planet or pollute. And we don't need further pollution. What we really need is to clean up our environment. And I believe we can do that by changing our own vibration and healing the waters on our planet. So now I'm just going to talk a little bit about the correspondences between astrology and acupuncture. And first of all, the planetary frequencies, you heard tuning forks tonight in the Astrosonics affirmations. The tuning forks may also be used on the body, on the meridian system. So there are tuning forks with resonators and tuning forks without resonators. The resonators allow the vibration to carry once they touch the body. So anyway, the vibration I always use two tuning forks, and in acutonics, that's what we do because there's an opening point of the meridian and a balancing point of the meridian. And it's the two tuning forks together that form that sound wave and the healing properties that go directly to that meridian. So the deeper meridians, are called the eight extraordinary vessels. And they are reservoirs. They act as reservoirs that regulate the energy in the 12 ordinary channels. Now, there are correspondences between, I'm just going to call them EV, extra vessels. The 8 EV, the 8 trigrams in I Ching, 8 phases of the moon, and the 8 notes, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. So I will show you that diagram here. This is a picture from my book, and I added the notes. And I'm not going to go into this. This is just to show you the correlation of 8. And the meaning and symbology of 8 is as above, so below. It's that harmony, heaven and earth. Okay, so the mirroring, and it's also the infinity. So the 8 extraordinary vessels are called extraordinary because when things are running smoothly in the body, the 12 ordinary channels, are good to use. But when things have been out of balance for a long time, we call upon the energy of the 8 EV to regulate. So extraordinary circumstances, let's say. And we certainly are in extraordinary times and requiring extraordinary measures. Now, the other correlation is between the 12 ordinary meridians and where the meridians flow in our body, and also the 12 signs in the zodiac. So in this chart, so this is the east-west axis. Aries is east, Libra is west. This is the natural zodiac position. Consider this the waist in the body, okay? The waistline, I mean. In the body, we have 3 yin and 3 yang meridians that circulate above the waist, and 3 yin and 3 yang that circulate below the waist. Well, and in astrology, every 2 hours, the sign on the eastern horizon changes. Well, it just so happens that for the 12 meridians, every 2 hours is a sign, like in the circadian clock. Each meridian has a 2-hour time frame assigned to it. So lung is 3 to 5, large intestine 5 to 7 a.m. This is 3 to 5 a.m. Liver is 1 to 3 a.m. Anyway, so when we put the meridians on the astrology chart, we find that there are 3 yin and 3 yang meridians, so sorry. 3 and 3 yang above the waist, 3 and 3 yang below the waist. But the signs are also yin and yang as they correspond to those elements that I talked about. So we have 3 yin and 3 yang signs above the east-west axis, and 3 yin, 3 yang signs below the east-west axis. It seems to correlate every time a healing protocol is assessed, let's say, or healing assessment is taking place. It seems to hold true. There is consistency. And of course, all of the signs represent parts of the body, and the houses, I would say, are more about the circumstances. That's all I'm going to say on that. All right, we're going to move on. This is just my little, do you know who you really are? And it's helpful to understand your own signature. But we're going to address just 3 tonight, which comprise the personal trilogy. The sun, which is, in my view, the soul. It's how all of the parts integrate into expression, and it is the conscious will and purpose. So this is our conscious driver, the sun is. The moon, on the other hand, is the yin aspect, and it is the emotional hidden responses. So I view the sun as the soul and the moon as the heart. Our rising sign, however, is how we dawn upon people. Because as you recall, as we know that the sun rises in the east, so whatever constellation was rising on the eastern horizon at the time that you were born is your rising sign. So even though your sun may occupy Sagittarius, let's say, if you have rising sign Cancer, you may be seen as more maternal, more caring, more nurturing than the fiery, freedom adventurous sign of Sagittarius. And here, just for the heck of it, I wanted to show you the USA's natal chart drawn up for July 4th, 1776. I only brought up the sun, moon, and rising because we do have, as a nation, we have our sun in Cancer. And we have always been concerned with protecting the vulnerable or mothering other nations. And we have the soul of a rebel with the moon in Aquarius, the revolutionary, which of course came about in 1776. And then our rising sign is Sagittarius, the freedom lover. And this is how we dawn upon the rest of the world. So we are seen by the rest of the world as that symbol of freedom. And I just thought that was interesting. So I wanted to, and that is just a snippet. There's a lot more to that chart, but that's all I wanted to say. So the nodes of the moon, these are points in the natal chart, or in any chart really, that are points of destiny, and they are important. This is called the dragon's head, and that is our destiny. The south node is the dragon's tail, and that is familiar territory that we are outgrowing. And I bring that up because in the United States chart, now I've shown you, brought up the chart with the nodes. Our north node is in Leo. Leo is the sign of the child, the inner light. It's ruled by the sun. And yet it's in the dark, mysterious house of death and rebirth, the 8th house. But it's also the house of the underground. But children are also shining a light in the darkness that we as a country have experienced. So that is Leo in the 8th house. And I just found that so interesting. But our destiny is definitely to follow our heart, to allow the heart to guide us, and to allow children to show us the way. It's about recapturing our innocence. The south node in Aquarius is about us leaving behind an overemphasis of technology, and an overemphasis of the intellect over the heart. Now, this is a chart for the exact time that the collective nodes, the nodes in the sky right now, affecting all of us, this is the chart for when the nodes changed from Gemini and Sagittarius to Scorpio and Taurus. And this is important because my favorite planet Sedna is conjunct the north node. And this is, in my mind, this is Sedna saying, calling us to our destiny and saying, look, I've been there. I've been through the dark abyss. I've had to address the abandoned emotions, my own abandoned self. She is throwing us a lifeline. This is how I view this chart. If she were conjunct the south node, we would see her energy as more of a negative influence. Because the planet is conjunct the north node, where we are headed, this is a positive omen. So she's showing us how to transcend trauma and overcome, transcend duality too, and to heal ourselves and to heal our water. I just wanted to bring up the eclipses this year because the nodes, the nodal position has everything to do with the eclipses. And we have one coming up at the end of this month, the new moon solar eclipse at 10 degrees of Taurus. We have one May 16th, and then October 25th and November 8th. I just wanted to mention that because the overall impact for the energies in 2022 do have a lot to do with these nodal positions of Scorpio, South Node, and Taurus, North Node. So the low vibe of Scorpio, which we are obviously dealing with and letting go of and truly flushing down the commode, is the deep control of power, like power over other life. So the low vibe of Scorpio is exploiting others' weaknesses while protecting their own. They project, project, project. It's about seeking revenge too. That's the Scorpion. So Scorpio has three symbols. Scorpio is the lowest, obviously, which it just stings for the sake of revenge. But the high vibe of Scorpio is represented by the phoenix, the regenerative power, the rebirth and regenerative power that heals. And then the eagle as well, that is able to transcend. So the high vibe of Scorpio is about surrendering outcome to the divine, transforming weaknesses into strength, which is why we did that meditation, putting our weakness, our vulnerabilities, our fears on the altar, and allowing God's superpower, the Creator's superpower, to come through and give us access to infinite potential and miracles. It's about empowering others and healing others. And it's obviously about transforming the shadow, the lead, into gold. And then the North Node in Taurus is a deep connection to nature. It's about love, pleasure, beauty, peace and prosperity, building lasting peace. So this is our destiny, North Node in Taurus. Okay, I'm almost at the end. Bear with me. This is a date in 2023, February 14, Valentine's Day, when the nodes will have reached 6 degrees here, and they will be forming an exact square to the nodes of the United States chart. Now, squares have a bad reputation, I realize, because they can evoke tension. However, we would never manifest any results if not for squares. Squares are like squeezing the juice out of a succulent fruit, okay? Squares allow us to manifest, and I feel that we will have truly turned a corner by the time this exact grand square happens. That's the high vibe that I am putting out there in all of my affirmations, that when this grand square occurs, that the worst will have been over, and we will see wonderful results manifesting. And the other really interesting thing about the 4 signs involved in this square is that Leo, the lion, Aquarius, the human, Taurus, the bull, and Scorpio, the eagle, are the 4 guardians of heaven mentioned in the Bible. I don't think that's a coincidence. All right. So to sum it all up, this is the energy for 2022. We're leaving behind all trauma and pain. We are moving toward the North Node, peace and prosperity, North Node in Taurus. We are learning to surrender our vulnerability, fears, and pain to divine will. We are reversing negative Scorpio love of power and control to the highest power of love. We're reversing that. And we are reclaiming our innocence, inner child, and learning to trust. And that all results in us embodying and living in harmony. Yes, you are a divine masterpiece, and when you live in harmony with who you really are, you establish peace in the world.